час нашою зброєю. Маємо пришвидшити події, пришвидшувати постачання і відкриття нових потрібних збройних опцій для України.
Top of Ukraine's wish list are combat planes, such as these U.S. F-16s and long-range missiles. Ukraine had just days earlier secured promises of heavy tanks from Western allies. It's also eyeing Germany's Tornado jets to form a so-called global fighter jet coalition. But German leader Olaf Scholz is saying no to it. He warns against a bidding war for weapons, pointing out that Berlin had only just decided on sending tanks, and already the next debate has fired up, calling it frivolous. He's now focusing on giving a call to Russian President Vladimir Putin, saying it is necessary to speak with him. The Kremlin condemned the pledges of tanks to Ukraine by the U.S. and Germany, but it says it is open to being contacted. Meantime, at the battlefront in Kherson, 3 people were killed by Russian strikes on various targets, including an apartment building and a hospital.
Прилетел град в эту квартиру. Один сюда, второй вот туда. Девушка здесь в квартире умерла на месте, к сожалению.
Across the battle lines, Russia accused Ukraine of killing 14 people by striking a hospital in the Russian-held town of Novaida. Russian state TV showing these pictures to back up the claim.
Тут же ж нету ни военных заводов, тут же ж нету ни военных машин, ни танков, ни... В кого вы стреляли? В кого?
The political crisis in Peru is showing no signs of abating. At least one person was killed and others hospitalized in clashes between protesters and police in Lima over the weekend. The latest fatality brings the nationwide death toll to nearly 60 people since demonstrations began in December. Protesters are demanding for the resignation of President Dina Boluarte.
Some protests escalated as demonstrators armed with rocks and makeshift shields clashed with police, who deployed gas and rubber bullets. The violence began in early December after the impeachment and arrest of former President Pedro Castillo on charges of rebellion. He was also embroiled in multiple corruption investigations. Supporters are demanding his release. Initially focused in Peru's rural mountainous south, the protests have since gained steam in the capital. Boluarte expressed regret early on Saturday after Congress refused to speed up the timeline for a presidential election amid the unrest. Lawmakers had given an initial green light to moving elections from 2026 to 2024, but on Friday voted down proposals to hold the election this year. Meanwhile, Boluarte has maintained she will stay on as president until elections are held.
British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has sacked Conservative Party chair Nadhim Zahawi after an investigation found he committed a serious breach by not being open about a tax probe. Ollie Barrett tells us why this could be a setback for Mr. Sunak's attempt for a government reset just a few months after taking over in Downing Street.
Rishi Sunak sacking Nadhim Zahawi, not giving him the opportunity himself to resign, taking the decision that he wanted to remove him from his cabinet. So he will no longer be Conservative Party chairman. He will no longer be minister without portfolio. Previously, Nadhim Zahawi has been hailed for successes such as when he was the vaccines minister during the COVID-19 pandemic. But now his ministerial career appears, for now at least, to be over. Rishi Sunak had asked his independent ethics advisor to investigate Nadhim Zahawi's tax affairs, and the ethics advisor has essentially found that Nadhim Zahawi was not open enough about some of the details about his tax affairs, the investigation into them, and the penalty at one point that he paid to the UK's tax authorities over his taxes. The Prime Minister paying tribute to Nadhim Zahawi's time in government, but also saying that it was clear that there had been serious breaches of the ministerial code. Nadhim Zahawi himself will head to the backbenches, and Rishi Sunak will hope that he can rely on his support when he gets there. The opposition opposition Labour Party say that this is another example that proves that Rishi Sunak is a weak Prime Minister. The fact that it took him until now to act, but the Prime Minister and his allies will say that due process had to be followed, that the independent ethics advisor had to be given time to carry out this investigation. One of the difficulties, though, for Rishi Sunak is it's an example of how problematic it is being for him to try and differentiate his administration from that of Boris Johnson. When Rishi Sunak took over at Downing Street, he insisted that his administration would demonstrate professionalism, integrity, accountability, and that was exactly because he wanted to differentiate himself from some of the chaotic periods that we saw during Boris Johnson's time in Number 10. But this affair shows how difficult it is for Rishi Sunak to make that distinction. It also comes at a time when another of his ministers is also under investigation. Dominic Raab, the Deputy Prime Minister, is being investigated as we speak over claims that he has bullied staff and colleagues in various ministerial government departments while he has been a government minister. Claims he denies, but another example of how difficult it is showing, difficult it is being for Rishi Sunak to move his government on. Also an illustration of how difficult it is at the moment for Rishi Sunak to focus on some of the issues at hand, such as the economy, such as migration, such as inflation. The headlines over the last week or so have been